Simple is simplify processes, amplify results. Simple is.
Before we begin, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panel members today. We'd like to welcome Hope Windle, Director of SUNY COIL Center from the State University of New York, Oneonta. Welcome to the panel, Hope. We'd like to welcome Yasir Ansari, CEO and founder of Simplet. We'd like to welcome Dr. Jatin Mohan, Assistant Professor of Musicology, School of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, joining us from IIM University, New Delhi today. We have Dawn Harris-Wooden, international educator, virtual exchange and COIL facilitator and instructor joining us. We have Dr. Anuradha Shastri, Professor of Educational Psychology, Counseling and Special Education from the State University of New York, Oneonta, and Katrina Young, who's an international higher education consultant. I welcome you all to the session. Thank you so much for your time. And we'd like to begin now.
Welcome everyone to this amazing webinar, and hello to everyone who's watching this recording. My name is Yasir. My journey started in the United States as an international student myself, and I landed in SUNY Oneonta, and that happens to be the home ground for SUNY COIL programs. So I'm really delighted to hear about that. Before I started getting a lot of inquiries about how to recruit students from India or different questions about Indian education landscape. And every time I would go back to India, I would get messages and inquiries from either the institutions in my hometown or institutions that my family was connected to, and they were all looking for different ways to internationalize. So I really identified that need, that there is a lot of support needed in both parts of the world to help institutions internationalize, and that's how Simple Ed was born. And why I'm sharing this with you today is because one of those inquiries is still very consistent, that how institutions can collaborate with each other. And Simple Ed is doing some work to support this cause, but I think programs like COIL are great ways to address this and help institutions start this process of collaborations. And why COIL works better, because it really takes down those hurdles of boundaries and makes it a little easier for institutions to take those steps towards collaborating with an institution that might be far, far away. So along with that, Simple Ed does a lot of work in recruitment as well. We do our recruitment programs across the globe, ranging from Mexico, Latin America, India, Pakistan, Southeast Asia, to name a few regions. Having said that, we have a really, really great set of speakers who have tons of experience with COIL. So I'm really excited to hear from them and learn from them. And so I'm going to pass it over to our speakers. Thank you so much to all the speakers, and thank you so much to our audience members.
Good morning, good evening, good day. My name is Hope Windle, and I am the director of the State University of New York, SUNY COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. We were started in New York, but honestly, this kind of collaborative opportunity has been happening since the 90s or maybe earlier. But at New York, we started this opportunity for students to exchange information and be connected to students from other parts of the world. The State University of New York is a giant federation of 64 campuses, and we share resources, and we work with 376 students currently, and these are international students and students from all over the United States and all over the world. We work with 225 institutions, 32 countries. So we have a partner for you wherever you and your students might like to connect with. So we have wonderful opportunities to get people connected. We have a bulletin and a fair that takes place 4 times a year. Here's an example of a profile of a professor. We call it speed dating, affectionately, for our partnering fair, because it's a great opportunity to meet colleagues and to start the process of collaborating, professor to professor, instructor to instructor, and then with your students in your classroom. You can see a lot of our network members. You can also go to our website, coil.suny.edu, and see the whole list of schools. We have wonderful opportunities for professors to work within their classroom and connect with people from other parts of the world. So this happens synchronously and asynchronously. Usually it happens both ways for the students, which gives them time to reflect when they're working asynchronously, not in real time, and then also for them to get to know each other in real time. So the basic understanding of what we're doing is that you're teaching your course, however you do that, and you're doing it in the language of your choice, obviously, and the discipline that you teach, that program, that course that you're teaching. Your partner is teaching the course that they're running. It might be the same discipline as you, or it might be something different, and that's okay. You are doing this as a project within your course, a collaboration. You and your partner, as if you're designing ahead of time. Usually we give a semester to design the learning outcomes together, to determine the length of the interaction, very similar to designing an online course. You and your partner think up the collaborative activities that you will do, the methodology, the technology that you will use, and then during the semester that the project runs, you will monitor your students' work. Each of you will grade separately, and you will evaluate how this proceeded. Your students will create an international team. They will work on issues and content that you give them. They will learn how to work across cultures, across the way that they have learned, and learn about how other people have learned through their culture. And then they will reflect together. These are the phases of a typical collaboration. And honestly, this can be as short as 3 weeks and as long as 10. And all of the projects usually have this ice-breaking time, a team formation time, a project phase, and then a reflection time. Just to remind you, this does not take over your whole course. This is a unit. This is a module. This is a project within your whole course. Do not think that you need to have to reorganize your course. Think of where somewhere in your course your students are having trouble learning something. And we all know that we learn by doing. So this is an opportunity for your students to work together on learning more deeply something that you teach in your class by sharing that with their partners internationally. So here are the different types of collaboration. It can be as short as something in a pre-college before your students come and get situated in their classes. Or in many places, there's a thing called a first year experience, which might be a shorter course. It might have less credits attached to it. And it's more of an orientation to being in college. And that is an opportunity to have an international experience and open your students' eyes to the possibility of what they could do with their experience in college, and maybe even shift their idea of their career. And also do this with travel. So as we start to think about that international opportunity, there can be something where your students visit each other nestled within a pre-destination orientation and connection to people and students where your students might go, and then a wrap-up and a reflection afterwards. Also, for professors and instructors, this is a time to connect to your research, have your students do some research for you, or to connect to a client or a non-government organization locally and globally, and also connecting to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is a worldwide structure. This is a great way to connect for your students.
As Hope mentioned, that COIL gives you an opportunity, and for your students particularly, to open the doors of international education for them without ever crossing their geographical locations, their geographic boundaries. As Hope mentioned, that COIL gives you an opportunity, and for your students particularly, to open the doors of international education for them without ever crossing their geographical locations, their geographic boundaries. As Hope mentioned, the project that we came up with, me and Professor Shastri, had 3 different aspects. But before that, we had to ensure the logistical challenges with doing COIL and doing COIL with anybody. That is, first is student pairing. What it means that we had to put together students in groups so that they can work together. Because in COIL, you do not go on to micromanage them. The COIL is not about telling them what to do, but rather just guiding them and making and enabling them to make their own independent decisions. So what we did, I had 60 students, Professor Shastri had 30 students, and we paired them together. So there were 2 students with 1 student, and they had different groups with 3 students, 2 from India, 1 from the US. The project that we selected had 3 different aspects. As COIL as a teaching pedagogy is truly interdisciplinary. It is not focused on one particular topic, one particular idea, one particular philosophy. It can really diverge across different disciplines. So therefore, we made it very clear and very maneuverable for our students. Our project had 3 different aspects. First is personal life, where the students had to intervene and had to discuss about their personal lives, questions about how their life is in their campus, what do they do in the free time, and then academic life. The second aspect was academic life, which was about questions about their academic life at their campus, the relationship which they had with their peers, with their professors. And the third, and perhaps the most important part, which Hope also hinted at, was including sustainable development goals. So rather including the whole section of SDGs, we selected 3 SDGs: quality education, mental health and well-being, and gender equality. And they had to select any one of these SDG to work on their project. And at the end of their COIL project, they have to come up with written assignment, which me and Professor Shastri looked into and found some fascinating findings. What we realized over the time while looking at their papers, that that uh, that our COIL project had much more onto our students than we earlier thought. We thought it will make them better students. Of course, we'll give them leadership skills, will make them, enable them making their own independent decisions. But we realized that it might have some immediate and long-term impact on how they're going to pursue their careers. For example, we realized that it really sort of pushed their some very critical career-ready competencies. For example, leadership skills, handling complex projects, working on interdisciplinary and multi-dimensional projects. And these are the same projects which they went on to do in their internships and their positions after they graduated. Some of my students have already graduated. And as I'll come up and we'll discuss that, some of our students, when they went on to do their internships and went on to abroad to pursue their masters or their higher education, some of the things that we were able to inculcate in them through our COIL project proved really valuable.
So in terms of selecting a course for COIL, although I am teaching different courses, I found one in my set, which was an introductory level course that would attract students from different majors. So I had students who were doing computer science, majoring in computer science, majoring in criminal justice, in psychology, in education. So I thought that this was a good course. And another thing which I was also very much attracted to was that these students were from different years. Some were first year students, some were second years, third years, and even graduating seniors. And this provided a very rich kind of discussion in class. Another thing that I was sort of looking for over the years, I've been teaching for a number of years, and I find that students are getting to be more and more isolated. So forming a community of learners in the class is becoming increasingly difficult. And when I just say, get together with your classmates here locally and work on some of this, there is not so much of an excitement. But when I say that, part of the semester, we are going to expand our class, and there will be students from India who will join our class, and you will interact with them. There is so much of excitement and drive and motivation, and I wanted to capture that momentum, and that worked very well. So it helped them to strengthen interpersonal skills and a number of other things. We are talking about developing a global mindset, and many of our institutions have that as a goal, and how we worked along with it. So here are some questions that we have. Do you believe international communication is important? And what are some of the ways in which we can facilitate, we as professors, administrators, staff, who are stewards of our higher education institution, how can we facilitate this international communication? This slide captures the heart of what we do. COIL helps us, as Director Hope suggested, that it is in terms of providing an environment that facilitates the development of students as world citizens. So in terms of teaching, this particular slide talks about how COIL and other aspects of institutions converge. In terms of teaching, it helps to address educational equity, and I would really like to sort of elaborate upon this. When we talk about study abroad programs, it is only the selected few who are able to take the benefit of it, depending upon their financial situation, depending upon their support of families, and so on. But with COIL, I would tell the students that as long as you have a laptop, you could be anywhere, whether you are on campus in the classroom, whether you are off campus or on campus in the library, or off campus in your room, or anywhere, any place, as long as you have the internet connection, you can talk with your partner in India. And that was very exciting to them because it really addressed the issue of no matter where you are, we can meet. COIL is powerful enough to meet students where they are. So that is in terms, so it empowers students no matter what their background, no matter what their responsibilities. Then in terms of developing future career competencies, these days there's a lot of talk about how there is a disconnect between what higher education institutions are doing and what is required in the workforce. And this is exactly what COIL helps us address in terms of teamwork, in terms of communication, in terms of professionalism. And in some of the excerpts that I will be sharing as we move along, I will talk about what were some of the student reflections. And institutional mission, we have said that, these days more and more institutions are really looking to develop this kind of an interconnectedness. And Mr. Yasir Ansari mentioned about the NEP, that was in 2020, the National Education Policy, which really hones in the importance of developing global mindedness and world connectedness. And as me and Dr. Mohan were working on this, we felt that COIL provides opportunities for community building, embodied in the Sanskrit phrase Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the world is a family. And when I told my American students about this, they said, wow, can it really help us doing that? That is the excitement that I wanted us to capture.
COIL as a pedagogy is really beneficial for the students, but it in itself has multiple logistical and cultural challenges. One of them is time zone challenges, and as Hope mentioned, that it can be done synchronously and asynchronously. Doing it asynchronously is much easier because the time zones of the participating students from two different countries can be very challenging. So what you have to do, you have to be really patient with your students. You have to sort of understand that there is a strong possibility you perhaps never meet all of the students with whom your students are participating with, and just understand you might just know them through their written assignments or when your own students mentions about them. And second is cultural barrier, which is much more complicated. And I remember when we did this presentation at my own university, one of the questions came about this cultural aggressions which can happen when students from different cultures work on a common project. And Hope handled it very eloquently. She mentioned that we have to accept that some of these microaggressions will happen. However, we can somehow train our students, as what I did and worked for me, and as I'll do COIL again, I'll keep a note of that. It's not about what I need to teach my students to ask. I don't need to do that, but rather I need to teach my students what not to ask. There are certain boundaries which you must not cross. There are certain ways you must not talk to those students because you do not know them. They come from an entirely different sociological reality. For example, the students which at IILM, it's a university at the brink of Gurgaon. Gurgaon is a modern city which is at the brink of Gurgaon where the rural Haryana begins. It's a state in North India. So the students there comes from a sociological reality. They haven't traveled outside of India, even though they relatively come from the top 2-3% of India financially speaking, but most of them haven't really traveled outside of it. They mostly come from an agrarian background. So I knew I have to somehow tell them what are the questions you should ask and what are the questions, of course, you must not ask. So these are the cultural barriers which will come, and you as a teacher, as a mentor, as a professor, it's your job to somehow tame them, control them. And the third is partner reassignment. This is a challenge which came again and again with Professor Shastri and me. That was some of the students were not comfortable with some other student. For example, a student of mine was not responding to a student of Professor Shastri and vice versa. And they requested, can we reassign our partner? Can we reassign with a different partner? Because a deadline for the project is coming up. We have to find a way. And you have to cater to those requests one way or the other. The one option is you can send a prior email to the student. Can you please respond to those emails? If that doesn't happen, then you have to take these steps. So you have to be really patient and very flexible. So the original list, which Professor Shastri and I came up with original pairs of students, with original COIL partners, we had to redesign it again and again so many times. And that's, I think, would go with any COIL practitioner.
Now, in terms of the benefits for the professors, how it is beneficial to different groups. So, for instance, in terms of the benefit for the professor, it helps colleagues to collaborate and really, and ultimately, we are all looking for situations, we are all looking for experiences that will enhance the students' lives, And certainly, in terms of the benefits to the professors, it expands their pedagogical repertoire. In terms of the students, it helps to encourage curiosity and also a sense of agency. And there were a few students in Dr. Mohan's class who are planning to do their studies abroad, particularly in the masters in the United States. And they did mention that now they feel very earlier, they were wondering, oh my God, how would it be to interact with people whom I have never met when I actually go to the United States? And the good thing that we did was that we had some of our teaching assistants. There was one teaching assistant from my side and one teaching assistant from Dr. Mohan's side. And these teaching assistants were very helpful in terms of coordinating. They were equally flexible and coordinating the teams, So when the teams had to be regrouped, they definitely stepped up to how it could be done. So it certainly is beneficial to both the professors as well as to the students. Now, this is where the impact of COIL in terms of student preparedness, it certainly eased, as I mentioned a minute ago, it eased any kind of anxieties that students had or concerns that they had about travel. It enhanced their academic familiarity. And particularly, what I remember, one of the student assistants tell us, we told our classes when they were saying, oh, what can I ask? What can I say? Who are they? I have never met them. And the student assistant said, I just want you to remember one thing. The person on the other side is one just like you. And that calmed them down considerably because they felt that amidst all of the differences in time zone, differences in location, there were these subtle similarities, and that both of them were at the same stage of their lives, that they were college students. So in terms of the observations of a student advisor, there were some logistical challenges. This is what our teaching assistants told us, that certainly there were, but I have to say that students were very good to figure out exactly when they could interact, a little window in the morning, kind of 10 a.m. US time, or 10 p.m., 11 p.m. US time, which was morning for India, and vice versa. And although we had some challenges, I have to point out that one very strong factor was the language. The language was English. My students were asking me when I told them about this project, oh, how are we going to speak with them? Which language are we going to speak in? We don't know any of the Indian languages. And I assured them that, a typical Indian is trilingual. So in English is definitely one of the three languages. So you don't have to worry about it at all. And then they were amazed how that linguistic fluency in English was there amongst the Indian students. In terms of the development of self-efficacy, a sense of confidence that although I may, like one of the students in her reflections, she told us that although I'm not sure whether I'll be working internationally, but if I am given an opportunity, the COIL experience has certainly helped me develop that, has certainly helped me develop a sense of self-efficacy that I will be able to interact with people internationally. And that was very powerful. And to me, that is the power of COIL, that it empowers students to go beyond their comfort zone. And here are some excerpts. Here are some excerpts from the student essays that I received. And I would just like to unpack the first one. So if you could please bear with me. Overall, this COIL project was incredibly rich. I mean, I was so surprised to see this because it was such a limited, just about a 4 to 6 week project. And within those 4 to 6 weeks, the actual interaction was no more than an hour or maximum an hour and a half. But the student says that it was incredibly rich interpersonal experience, and it helped me cultivate the career competencies of communication, professionalism, and digital literacy. This is what the student is saying, that it helped her develop these career competencies. I also had to be professional and punctual in correspondence and show up for the interview ready to go. It again, as a professor, to hear this from a 19 or a 20-year-old that she had to be professional was, I said, wow, this is really great. Overall, using Zoom and navigating different time zones was helpful skill to practice. The experience helped me a lot if I decide to work in an international context. If not, it is still incredibly valuable learning about university life in India and a little bit more about their education system. And I would like to connect this to what Dr. Mohan said, that it is a value added course, and really the value added aspect of it was the COIL that we did. And we found this to resonate over and over again in the student reflections that we received, that although they recognized that there are some logistical differences, but they felt that the benefits that they got out of it were far outweighed the logistical differences, which they could easily navigate through.
Since we practiced COIL, this came up to us, this dawned upon us that we have to sort of make this wonderful idea of COIL a sort of a regular academic practice in other institutions in India, which really isn't. There are very few institutions in India which knows about COIL. So what we came up with this idea, this grand idea perhaps, if I may, is about starting a consortium of Indian academics who are interested in doing COIL, and perhaps academics from around India, around the world as well, so that we can together make them, put them in one particular place where they can, and online speaking, and they can work on COIL project and start designing COIL project, and we can share our experience with them. So if you join this consortium, which is called SUNY COIL Consortium of Academics in India, and we are very fortunate, me and Professor Shastri are very fortunate that we have Director Hope with us. And when I first approached her, and we first approached her about this idea, we thought that we are too small for her to join us. I mean, this idea is really in our head at the moment, and she's already handling this really well-known, complex, spread around the world COIL center. But she was very appreciative, and she came up. Yeah, so if you join this consortium, we will, all three of us, share our experience and share all the nitty-gritties of doing COIL. It has multiple prerogatives for joint academics. One of them that internationalization in your teachings. It's a commodity which is extremely valued, not just in India, but around the world. I have seen academics who have a bit of international experience have taught around the world are very much eager by other institutions to work for them. So COIL does provide you that international aspect that you handle not just your students, but students from different parts of the world as well. And also, COIL also makes you a better teacher, a better professor, a better academic, because you're not looking at even problems which are purely academic, not just from the idea of your own socio-political habitat, but also from other students. For example, the idea which is very complicated as quality education can have multiple interpretations. And when you do COIL with students from different parts of the world, all of the students are going to come up with their own ideas about it. So when you read those transcripts, when you read those assignments, that will change your mind. That will expand your mind in different directions. Third, as you do COIL, as you come up with, join us in this consortium, all of us will provide you peer mentorship and institutional support. What we'll do, we'll share our guidance, not perhaps guidance, but our experience, nitty-gritties of doing COIL, and what are the things you should do, what are the things you must avoid. And also, SUNY will help you finding your potential COIL partner institution. And additionally, every academic in the world needs an international academic network or international academic partnership. Without it, academics generally doesn't, go ahead in academia. This is coming. I've learned this from very young. Thankfully to Professor Shastri and Hope. So anybody who comes and joins our consortium will also be joining the international academic partnerships which the consortium brings with itself.
All right, so you have heard quite a bit about COIL Virtual Exchange. We are thrilled to be here, and we know that this piques our students' interest in travel. It piques their interest in learning about the rest of the world, in seeing ways in which that they connect to students from other places in the world, that there are commonalities as well as differences, and they learn how to work together. So we are so passionate about this work and the importance of everyone learning how to do it. So here is a slide to share with you all the different ways that we connect with our community. So if you join the SUNY COIL membership, you get many opportunities to learn from each other and network. We also have a lot of resources to share, logistical ways in which to work, and handbooks and all kinds of resources. And just at the bare basics, this is what you need to do it. 2 instructors, 2 classes, 2 cohorts of students, 2 institutions. And we know there's many more than 2 cultures involved. So these are all the kinds of things that you will need to consider when you do this work. But as you heard from Dr. Shastri and Dr. Mohan, this is a life-changing opportunity for your students and for you. We also provide resources for the students, helping them see where this experience will help them with their resume and help them with their career. And here is something basic to learn about about what COIL is, to share with your colleagues and your instructors and your administrators. And we have so many ways in which to connect and learn about each other and about how to do this together. We also offer workshops, professional development ways in which Dr. Shastri and Dr. Mohan learned how to develop their collaboration. So we have these workshops that are offered, and we have ways in which that you as a professor are mirroring what your students do in a collaboration. And here's an example, many examples of what our courses look like. We use the tool Padlet that you can access by your phone as well as your computer, and you can upload videos and links really easily to this device. So that's it.
Hello, everyone. We are all very aware of the unpredictable landscape of international recruitment. So we don't want to belabor that point too much, but we want to say that recruiting students has always been a long-term strategy. So regardless of the challenges that may be facing our industry right now, recruiting is a long-term strategy, and it's always been a strategy where we don't really know what the road ahead is going to be.
It's good to be flexible. It's good to think through what can you do based on the situation that's in front of you. So that's what we're going to talk a bit about today, and how you can utilize these programs to encourage students and recruit them into your graduate programs.
So leveraging a virtual exchange on COIL, one of the things you might be thinking, like, okay, so how does this tie into recruitment? Well, you want to first find out who on your campus is engaging in COIL. There are many ways you can do that. One of the ways is definitely you can see if your institution is a member of SUNY COIL. And if they are, then that's going to be a tie-in for you to figure out which department that is on campus. You might also want to connect with whoever sort of oversees the whole international portfolio on your campus, or just start asking around. Even asking could be a seed of an idea that you're planting with others that your university should be doing more virtual exchange in COIL. So the other part is, once you do figure out that maybe that someone is doing virtual exchange in COIL, likely, very likely, it's going to be faculty that are doing it. And, you know, one of the tips we, as those of us who already work in recruitment, we are familiar with the academic cycle, but we want to always approach faculty being mindful of that cycle. And give them enough time to be able to reply to you on how you might be able to get in touch or be involved and connect with the students that are participating in the exchange. So in this case, it was US students and students in India. And so talking to your Professor Shastri, the equivalent, would be how you could start to open that conversation and be able to connect to the students in India.
So how do we give them that sense of, okay, now let's talk about the programs that are offered at our institutions or your institutions. So one of those things is really good to focus on like strong intercultural, collaborative, and digital skills. You know that that's what the students have if they are, you know, participating in these programs. And these are vital assets for graduate level programs, and really great for the job market. So how would these programs that are offered maybe connect them to different research opportunities? The students are now connected to a global network by participating in these VE and COIL programs. So how do we showcase the programs that are offered in the graduate schools so that the students are like, okay, this makes sense. You want to connect the dots for them. So you're really, again, speaking to what they're looking forward to doing after they complete their degrees.
So incentivizing participation. So to me, that equals recognizing that the student had the VE COIL experience with your institution. And some of these tactics might sound familiar to those of us working in recruitment. But if you know, I mean, Dr. Shastri mentioned this already earlier, that it is for Indian students, I mean, this is a multilingual country, right? Like, so English is one of the languages. So if you know that those students participated in a COIL exchange with your school, maybe you want to like waive the TOEFL. Maybe you don't need that because they've already presented themselves as fluent and capable of doing this. And this doesn't mean waive TOEFL for everybody. This means for those students that participated in this. This could also be the way to look for your next graduate students through assistantships, through on-campus jobs. Dr. Mohan and Dr. Shastri both talked about how they had graduate assistantships and students involved in this, and what a great experience it was for them. You might even think that there's a small scholarship that you could offer these students. And one of my all-time favorites, and I think also for Kat, early application benefits. I mean, we want to get those applications in there. We want to recognize students, and we want to get them admitted. There are sometimes other factors outside of that you know, there could be worries about, but I think that those offset the early application benefits. Getting students pipelined into your school and connected is going to be the most efficient way to build interest. They already know something about your school, so why not capitalize on that?
So now you've had students who have, participated in these programs. So what is a great way to, again, like get them into your pipeline as they're looking at future opportunities to study at your institutions? Well, one simple thing to do from the beginning would be to collect information from students who have already, who are clear that they would like to pursue a future degree. So getting that up front, getting it online, so that way you're not trying to transfer, if you can, you're not trying to transfer things from paper into a database, makes life a lot simpler for you. So I think that's something that's very important. And trying to personalize as much as you can do, personalize the messaging that's going to students. You may have already collected so much information because the students have participated in these programs or these courses. So really being able to send individualized messages such as videos that are for the students. They don't have to be very long and they don't have to be very fancy, but just showing that you know each individual student and what they're looking to do. Something short and sweet really can make a difference. And so if you focus on a small group of students to do that with, you might see a very big impact. People love to hear their own names or to know that you've noticed what their interests are and what they're doing. So that can be really useful. And then really just helping them to connect the dots. So again, the students are now a part of this major global network, so helping them to find mentors that have completed the program, perhaps alums who have completed the program that they could be working with, who have already gotten jobs, maybe working with you or other professors who've previously taught in the program, but helping them to see how this could propel them forward in the future. And also maybe making connections in the career services office so that they know how to talk about how students can use, much like they talk about how students can use study abroad, how students can use their VE and COIL experience in their future work experiences.
And one of the great things about being engaged in virtual exchange and COIL, and most specifically being part of the SUNY COIL network, which I should say has the longest professional history in the industry. So, I mean, they have been leaders for a long time. And that means they also have a lot of global connections. And I think that this opens a pathway for recruitment. And so it helps you leverage time, money, resources, and more importantly, when you attend like a great fair, like Simplet offers, you can alert these students, hey, I'm going to be in your area at this fair. I'd like to connect with you since you know something about our school. And as Kat and I will agree on, reputation and getting students to know about your school is like a major part of the work and has been for a long time as we're all competing for the same group of students.
So the first question is about technology, right? We understand the concept, we understand all the benefits, but what are the technologies being used, and what any tips that you have to make it more efficient and maybe even free if possible? So what are your comments on the technologies?
I think it's very important for instructors to use technology that they're somewhat comfortable with and that is also okay on their campus. So we have wonderful collaborations that happen in MS Teams. MS Teams has gotten very robust, and you can share documents as well as all kinds of things. And we also have things happening in Zoom, obviously, and I bet the tool that we're using today right here could be something that people use. We also use Padlet and Google Classroom and Google Docs. And I think the one thing to think about is, will your tool be censored in another place? Many social medias in Europe are not allowed. GDPR is an issue, as well as FERPA in the United States. And so the issue of privacy needs to be considered. And I think to consider what your institution is comfortable with is helpful.
To follow up on what Hope mentioned, the choices, there are several platforms that students can select from. And when we were working with our students in India, WhatsApp, the country runs on WhatsApp. And here, our students are not much familiar with WhatsApp. So our teaching assistant did a little bit of an introduction to WhatsApp, and then they also became fairly comfortable with WhatsApp, which helped us to gain success with our project. So, and then when I told the students, you can select a platform that you are comfortable with. When you are talking about interviewing and having a conversation with your classmate in India, you could do it on WhatsApp, you could do it on FaceTime, you could do it on Zoom, you could do it on Teams. So make, any kind of platform that makes you comfortable and your partner is acceptable. And that, again, calmed their anxieties or concerns. That was helpful.
There's one thing I realized that all students do not react to technology in a similar way. For example, some students in the US are very comfortable with WhatsApp, not all of them. For example, some of my students told me that some of their counterparts in the US are not comfortable with sharing their contact information with WhatsApp. So they maintain their communication through their professional email addresses, and then they went on to their interview through Teams or Zoom. So even though technology might be available in the country with whom you're participating in COIL with, but the students might not be comfortable with that. So you have to find different ways for sometimes different students.
So a lot of times the conversation around COIL or any kind of MOU articulation partnerships is related to compliance and legalities and what does the government allow, what does the government does not allow. So just to clear the air for most of the Indian institutions that are listening to this, do you require any special permission from the government, UGC, NAAC, any other body out there to start this COIL on your campus?
In my COIL collaboration with Professor Shastri, we faced no legal challenges, of course, and we also faced no documentation requirements sort of from our institution, except my institution required an MOU to be signed between SUNY Oneonta and IILM University, which really didn't go through for some reason, but it didn't really become a barricade in our COIL collaboration. However, with that said, if there would be, a collaboration with a country with India doesn't have good relationships with, then it could be a challenge. Otherwise, I think it will be completely fine. However, with that said, I and Professor Shastri are currently working on a research paper about our COIL experiment. That will require sort of leaking out, sort of describing those critical information, the name of the students, what community they belong to, how is their COIL experience. That will require some sort of, not legal challenges, but sort of permission from our institution. For example, Professor Shastri's SUNY Oneonta, of course, will have an IRB, and she will seek permission from them regarding the ethical problems and ethical challenges in doing a research like this. Otherwise, in just doing COIL, I do not think that there would be any particular challenges adhering to Indian government vis-a-vis any country you are collaborating with. That's happened in my case as well. Thank you.
I would just like to follow up on that. As Dr. Mohan rightly pointed out, there were just permissions required, from the higher ups, but to do COIL, but not necessarily as such. And when they said that, okay, it is an innovative pedagogy, you can go ahead. And in terms of the IRB, what the Institutional Review Board is really looking for is that if information is shared, it needs to be student information is shared. It needs to be shared only in the aggregate form. No identifiable information should be shared. So the emphasis is on that. And the IRB looks over what we are going to do and what is the information that is going to be shared and approves it. Most of this primarily because it is the use of pedagogical work in a classroom. It comes under expedited review. So it is not a hurdle as such, I would say. And these are not, as Hope pointed out, they are not completely COIL courses as such. These are COIL enhanced courses. So COIL is a very small component of the course which enriches students. I just wanted to sort of underscore the contextual aspect of it. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for watching this recording. I hope you found it useful and valuable. My name is Yasir and I'm the founder and CEO of SimpleEd. At SimpleEd, we do amazing international education events throughout the year, so please check out our website and find out more information.